Hello again, friends. I'm glad you could join me. We're in the sanctuary again, and today I'd like to talk about music notation. How do you take a song that you hear, write that down on a piece of paper, and then hand it to someone else so that they can recreate the song? Well, we have modern music notation to do that. It tells you the pitch, it tells you the length of the note, but that's actually a very modern invention, 300, 400 years old. We know that we've been writing music down for at least 3,000 years. So how did we make that 3,000-year transition? I'd like to talk about that today. One of the oldest sets of songs that we have are the book of Psalms. We know that these were songs intended to sing because they contain directions for who sings, when you sing, how you sing. They also have indications of what instruments play and when they play. So we know these are songs. Believe it or not, we actually have some of the music that was written down so that you could hear how the melody went. Trouble is, we have no idea how to read the music. So hopefully one day we'll figure that part out and we'll know how these original psalms actually sounded. The first complete song that we have that is written down came from about the 2nd century BC in Greece. And it was part of a tomb, part of a monument. And the way that it was written down is, as the word was written down, there would be an indication above the word as to how to move the pitch. So you can write music one of two ways. Let me demonstrate. You can either say, we'll give a name to each note. That's how we do it now. C, C, D, C, F, E. That's how modern solfege works. That's how most of us read music. Back then, the most common way to write was to say, this is 0, 0, up 1, down 1, up 3, down 1. So it's not a very precise way to write music. It's a relative way to write music. And this developed not only in Greece and Europe, it also developed in Asia. We have examples of ancient Chinese writings that use indications that are very similar. As the word is written, there's an indication above it, a dot, 2 dots, a line, a slash. And this indicates how to change the pitch, when to change the pitch, also when an instrument plays. So although it's not modern, it is still a way to dictate that something changes in music. One of the first ways that we wrote music down that we can recognize and that is familiar to us came about in the 8th century, 7th century in Europe with monks. We call it Gregorian because Pope Gregory was the Pope at the beginning of the period, but we know it as chant. Here's a 5th century, 4th century melody. So you'll notice all of the notes are the same length. We didn't really have a way to dictate how long the note was held. That was kind of up for interpretation of the singer. So what was developed that made Gregorian chant is that you could sing the same song, but you would start on a different pitch. So it wasn't actually harmony. You weren't singing a hymn. There wasn't a bass line. It was 2 different people singing the same song at a different time, and it sounded something like this. So we know it's similar to Row, Row, Row Your Boat, how we'll do that in a round, although a little bit more involved and a little bit more complicated. So the next step that we needed, since we could write notes down, is we had to figure out how to make lengths and how to actually write down, hold this note this long. Well, from the 5th, 6th century on, the church, the Catholic Church, was very instrumental in the development of music. Most people, and I mean most, could not read. Most people couldn't read words, much less music. So monks who were well educated are really the ones that developed music notation systems. A lot of these developed, we modernly know solfege. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Well, do is actually the first 2 letters of the word dominus, Lord. And each of the degrees of solfege are the first 2 letters of a specific word. That was developed by a monk, actually, long before we had music notation. That was developed in 12th century or so. So modern solfege is even older than modern notation. We really didn't get modern notation with music lengths written down on a staff until after the Reformation of the 1500s. So you remember our talk about how the organ developed because merchants became a little wealthier and they needed something to spend their money on. Well, if you know your church history, Reformation in about the 1500s, 15th, 16th century, the same thing happened with the church, the same thing happened with music, the same thing happened with art, the same thing happened with literature. We had a merchant class. So with that development of a merchant class that traveled from one city to the next city, we developed a way that we could take this song that was sung at this cathedral, carry it across Europe, play it at this cathedral, and it sounded the same. So we have the church to thank for modern music notation. So we'll talk from the Renaissance next time. Peace to you.